Alright, so what I've done is I have compiled everything on a spreadsheet model so that we don't have to jump from slide to slide. In this video, we will learn about cost to charge ratio method for service line costing. We have the annual visits for service X and service Y each for a total of 10,000 visits, where 5,000 each visits for service X and 5,000 for service Y. We have the relative value units per visit, 10 and 18 respectively. We also have the direct cost for each of these because right now we're looking at the annual cost that comprises of the direct cost, the indirect cost of 300,000, and that gives us a total cost of 1.02. The annual charges, total of 2.1 million, and then we also have the annual revenues of 1.3 million. So in the cost to charge method in which we do based on charges, so there is two ways. First is based on charges, and the second one is based on revenues. So in the ones that we use charges, we divide the indirect cost by total charges. For the revenues, we divide the total cost indirect costs by total revenues. So in this case, it's going to be D8, which is total cost, divided by annual charges, which is D9. So D8 by D9 gives us 0.14. So the CCR, or the cost to charge ratio, is 0.14. That is 14.3% when converted to a percent. Now, I told you earlier that once we have the CCR calculated, in the previous video I told you, it is used to estimate the overhead cost for each individual service. And how we calculate the overhead cost is service overhead cost equals um, cost to charge ratio multiplied by service charges. So for service X, the charge is given in C13, right? C13, which is cost to charge ratio, C13, and then you multiply it with B10. So B10 is going to be the or it's going to be B9, right? B9, and this one is going to be C9, okay? And so that gives us this value. And so C13 multiplied by B9 and C13 multiplied by C9. So we are taking the charges, these two values, and multiplying it with the cost to charge ratio to get the service overhead cost for service X and service Y each. Now the total service cost is equal to direct cost plus indirect cost. So service X equals B7 plus C16. So B7 is the indirect cost, and that is over here, and that is B7 plus C16, B6 plus C16. So there is it's a little bit off here, and this is also C6 plus C16. So we have B6 plus C16, which gives us the direct cost for service X plus C16 is um, the overhead cost for service X. So direct cost for service X plus overhead cost for service X, direct cost for service Y plus overhead cost for service Y. That gives us the total service cost each for service X and service Y. Now the average cost per visit is equal to total cost divided by number of visits. So the total cost is here, which is C20, right? That we just calculated it, and then you divide it by the number of visits, which is 5,000 visits, and the same thing we do for service Y. So that gives us the average cost per visit for $68.50 for service X and $137 for service Y. Now the other method of doing the cost to charge method is based on revenues. And for that, the formula is indirect cost divided by total revenues. So that is D8 divided by D10. So that gives us 0.23 as the CCR, or the cost to charge ratio, and that is 23.10%. Now we calculate the service overhead cost by multiplying the CCR with the service charges. And the service charges, as you saw, were here C29, which is basically the cost to charge ratio, and B10, which is going to be here. here and here. Okay, so B10, so this is a bit off, so this should be B10 and this should be C10. Okay, so the cost to charge ratio multiplied by the annual revenue for service X and the cost to charge ratio multiplied by the annual revenue for service Y gives you these two numbers. Now we want to calculate the total service cost, which is an addition of direct cost plus indirect cost, and that we can get by adding B6 and C32. So B6 can be found here, which is the direct cost of $242,500 plus C32, which is right over here, service X, so service overhead cost for service X. So when we add these two numbers, we get the total service cost for service X, and the total service cost for service Y is C6 plus C33. So that's going to be C6, which is $485,000 for direct cost, and then we are going to add C33 with it, which is basically the service-wise service overhead cost, and that gives a total number over here of $692,692. Now, average cost per visit is the total cost divided by number of visits. So we take these two numbers, right, C36 and C37, and divide that by the number of visits. So that gives us the average cost per visit of $66.96 for service X and $138 for service Y.